Hey everyone, Matt with Triple Locked Adventures. Today we're going to do a video that I alluded to quite a while ago, and for whatever reason, I never got back to it. Today we're going to talk about, if you can see behind me, the awning, but specifically awning lights. I did a do-it-yourself, a DIY awning light install on my Overland Pros awning. This would apply to any awning on the market, so I wanted to show you kind of my experience now that I've had some time to use this. At the end of this video, I will show you guys some photos of it actually out in use at nighttime. It gets super bright, and I'll go over some of the ideas there on how to dim it and stuff as well. So without further ado, let me turn this camera around and we'll get right to it. Guys, let's dig into this. So let's start with the supplies I used, and I will put a link in the description to all the parts that were used in this film if this is something you guys are interested in. Let's start with the arm here that's kind of easily readily available. As you can see, actually let me show you where I installed them. So I installed lights on the arms here. These little black rods you see are actually legs that come down on this awning. There are I think 3 spots with legs, and then there's a few that don't have legs. You don't need them on this awning, but long story short, I put awning lights on this rail here, this rail here, this rail here, and this rail here. I did not do them on the outer rails that you can see there, or also on the back, because I felt like it's kind of you know, in a spot. I thought about putting one here, but it ended up all the wiring, which I'll talk about here in a second, kind of gets really jumbled up in here, and it's really hard. Sorry, that wasn't in camera. It gets all jumbled up here, so it's kind of hard to do the wiring there and not have it get all messed up. And I'll talk about that here in a minute. But as you can see, what I used is LED strips that have a self-adhesive on the back. One thing I want to note that I've seen a lot online is a lot of people are using LED strips with stick on them, but they're using the LED strips that, one, aren't waterproof, which I feel like is dumb when you have an awning. Yes, it stops the water, but it is going to be out in the moisture. But more importantly, a lot of people aren't using what they call a cob or a COB light strip. If you guys can see here, you actually can't see the LEDs in these. These are all diffused. So let me turn the lights on quick. If you're familiar with my other videos on my channel, this is my Tread XL. I have a switch here for my awning lights. And now you can see, hopefully this comes through in camera, you really can't see the individual LEDs in these strips. And that is a feature of a cob LED strip. It makes it very, very diffused and very nice. Now these ones, like I said, I'll put a link in the description to these. These I want to say are 5,000 Kelvin, or maybe they're 4,500. I try to go as low as possible, and that is to try to not attract so many bugs. Like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I will put some photos on the screen here of us actually in camping at night using these. This right now is at full brightness. It is full daytime, and you can still see it. It's actually pretty bright, and when you turn them on, it does actually give you some light back here. Now at nighttime, these are overpowered. They're too bright. So that goes into kind of the install and how I would recommend doing this. So obviously, let's start with LED strips. Very simply, you cut them to length. So they come in a bunch of different rolls, and at the end of each roll, there's going to be a already terminated piece. They also come with little clips that you clip on and run your wiring out of them. And then along these strips, let me turn this off real quick. It'll be a little bit easier to show you what I'm talking about. There we go. There are these little marks right here. You can cut it at any one of these marks. So you simply take your strip all the way along the whole thing, measure how long you need, cut the strip, peel off the backing on it, and fix it right to there. And then whether you have a already terminated end or you need to do a clip like this one here, if this focuses, this is one of those clip pieces. You just clip it on and run your wiring in it, and you use like pliers, and it terminates that end. From there, you're gonna run your wiring. Now, this is where things get a little complicated, and I'll be honest, I am not super happy with what I did, and I would like to redo it. I unfortunately only had a spool of heavier gauge wiring. I thought I had enough of a lighter gauge wiring, so I actually went overkill on my wiring, and then once you start combining all these arms, this got really thick, and it's not super flexible, which drives me nuts. But, so to run your wiring, let's start at this front arm. If you have an awning like I do, fun fact, if you pull back this awning, there is actually, it's in an extruded aluminum housing. So this one, I just ran simply up through, all the way down the extrusion, all the way through to the back. You can either use, I used a thicker piece of wiring to pull through the smaller wiring. If you try to use real thin wiring, it's gonna be a pain to stick it through there. So I would recommend, if you have electrician's wire feed tool, something like that, anything you can find to feed through there that will pass it through is a good idea. Fun trick that I did not try, but I have seen people do. You take a long piece of string and a hair dryer, and you can actually blow the string all the way through. So that's another trick as well, just if you guys have are kind of stuck. And then on these arms, you're gonna have to determine, and this is where it gets finicky, you need to determine how these arms all move and how that wiring is gonna need to be able to bend around when these arms move. Like this one's a little tight, but it doesn't get crushed. You have to be careful that when the awning closes down, nothing gets crushed. And let me just unplug this with one hand here. I'll show you if I can. There we go. What I did to have this so that it's hardwired per se is I got this connection on Amazon. And again, this is a little over gauged. I want to say this is a 12 gauge wire. For these LED strips, they actually don't pull that much power at all. And then I terminated it up and I combined them all together with some butt connectors and all that kind of stuff, heat shrink, the whole shebang, and that's why this thing is too thick. But anyway, this is a really nice connector that has a cap that goes on it. I put dielectric grease in it so that it doesn't corrode. And then on this side, this actually kind of tucked behind my awning. Oh, sorry. This tucked behind my awning, there's like some Velcro here. This is the one that's actually hardwired to my vehicle. So this one goes kind of up behind there. Let's see if we can see it. It kind of comes up right here, if that wants to focus. There we go. So it goes up and over my rack. It's tucked into this rail all the way across. And then it comes down here. I use some of these self-adhesive ties with cable ties and ran it down through here, and then it goes through one of the OEM boots. I didn't want to drill a hole in the roof. You could drill a hole in the roof if you wanted to, or say you already have a junction box on your roof to run these. That would be also an option. I wanted something slick that wouldn't get pinched by the door in any way. This actually, the way it routes, it does not get hit by the door. There's no rub points, there's nothing. And these little self-adhesive clips have a little bit of play to them, but it holds them really well. I had this on a trip that we did out to Southern California, 6,800 miles of overland use, lots and lots of washboard roads, zero issues. So that's how I ran that. And the reason I did that is that I can, once I deploy the awning, I can, like I showed you guys, you unplug these little caps. This is going to be hard to do with one hand. I might be able to do it, maybe. Yep. And that allows you to plug it in. And when the awning is getting put back together, I just tuck that in before I do the final zip, so all the wiring is hidden. And with that, once you plug it in, press the button, and as you probably could see, we now have awning lights. So that is the basis of this. What I would recommend for wiring gauge, guys, is take a look at the amperage load of the lights that you're going to use. If you're using the ones that I recommended, still, I'd recommend looking at that, and depending on your length of wire going to, whether it's your battery or your switch or your control system, your relay, however you have it working, you'll need to determine that length of wire and how much amperage load will be on that. to then determine what size wire you need. It is not nearly as thick as you see here though. I overshot on this. I can't stress that enough. But that is the simple of how you do this. I had so much left of my roll that I actually also put a strip on the bottom of this shelf in the back. And I have that on a separate switch on my Garmin switch, and I click trunk light. And as you can see, we now have a nice little trunk light. I find this really nice, especially at camp, like the factory lighting. I put a red bulb in there so it doesn't attract bugs, but it still is, it's very dim, especially when you're trying to get in and out of the fridge and stuff. So you can be able to have that, just turn that on and off, awning off, is super, super nice. Now, you guys are probably going, okay, this is pretty cool so far. You wired it all up. You showed us how you did that, but you talked about dimming in the beginning. Yes, that is correct. So let me just open up my Garmin power switch here. I used to have it on the home screen, but I've been doing some things. All right, so in the Garmin power switch, which is my switch of choice for this specific setup, you could use any switch on the market. The Garmin power switch allows you to make custom menus and switches and stuff. So as you guys can see here, I have my awning just like you saw before. That turns on the awnings, and that turns it on 100%. Same thing with the trunk. If I click trunk, it turns on the trunk 100%. But if I click this one down here that says trunk 25%, let me see if I can show you guys. So that's 25%. It's gonna be hard to do without. Here, there's 100%. There's 25%. And same thing works with the awning. So let me pan over here. That's 100%. Oop, it's gonna flash in the screen. It is actually not doing that in real life. That is probably the frequency. That's funny. It is flashing on the screen. It is not actually doing that in life. It is a standard 25%. So this is really nice, guys, because what it allowed me to do is dim these lights. I found, and like I said, I'll post a photo right now of them in use when we were in, I think, the Kofa National Wildlife Refuge in Arizona. These were stupid bright. I mean, it looked like a UFO in the distance. So I was like, man, I need to be able to dim these. So very easily on the Garmin power switch, you just make a custom switch and you can set up dimming. Now, I don't want to make a whole video on how to do that. If you guys are interested in that, let me know. I know I have a bunch of Garmin followers. So if you're interested in that, shoot some comments below and I'll show you guys how you make custom switches. And fun fact, if you guys noticed here, UFO turns on all the things, including the rock lights. So you can have custom switches that turn on a myriad of different things, and you can even have it where it turns some things on, maybe 100%, some things on 25%, maybe some things strobe. You can do a lot of functions, so pretty cool. But if you guys are interested in that, put some comments below. What do you guys think of this though? I would also like to hear what you guys think of having awning lights. I have noticed that there is a trend in the awning market to start including lights on awnings. With that said, it seems like the market on awnings is getting a little crazy on pricing. It has came down since COVID, but awnings are getting kind of crazy in price. And I think some of this is because they're throwing on like light features. I don't remember the exact price that it cost me to do this. I had wire laying around, I have electrical connectors laying around, but I want to say this cost me probably less than 200 bucks, if even, to do this entire setup. So super cheap to do. Honestly, set out your awning. You could do this on a weekend or something, or even while you're at camp if you really wanted to, and wire it all up. So super cool little project. I love sharing these little DIY things with you guys. I hope you enjoy them as well. Like I mentioned, throw some comments below. If you haven't already, please like, please subscribe. Love you guys. Hopefully we'll see you out on the trip.